All right, welcome to episode 52 of the Indie Creator Exchange. This morning we're joined by Steve Urena, and I got to say hi real quickly at SPX, and am super excited to have him on today. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? It's nice to see more indie comics out there. It's nice to meet more indie comic creators. SPX was so much fun. I didn't think there would be so much to do in Bethesda, Maryland.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 3 days. I'm from Connecticut, so I took a nice train ride through the Amtrak. Took me straight there and straight back, and you can't ask for more than that when you're traveling for these Comic Cons.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And it treated you well, SPX?
Yes, it did treat me very well. I got to sit next to some very talented creators, and I got to see, a living, breathing indie comic ecosystem that is SPX, which is pretty awesome. It's very cool to see that, because I'll do events of all kinds. I'll do the regular Comic Cons, I'll do, horror cons, but I love how passionate people who love indie comics are. And my thing is your vibe attracts your tribe. So I feel like at these things, like you'll always find people who want to check out your stuff.
And you had a pretty sweet location. You were right at a doorway. You were like
Yes, I was
two in on the right.
right near the bathroom. So nice foot traffic.
No, you got that's a good, decent foot traffic.
Right. So we usually start this out with the same question. What we start out is take us back to little Steve, childhood Steve, maybe toddler Steve. But what was the first thing that opened up your eyes to the world of comics? Maybe it was something you saw. Maybe it was something that you bought. Maybe it was something that you started drawing. But what was your first awareness?
I would say my origin story are the Fox animated cartoons, like Spider-Man and X-Men are the first things that come to mind in terms of comic stuff. I also remember I was sick in the hospital as a kid, and my dad bought me a whole stack of comics just based on from me watching those cartoons, and that kind of opened the gateway, and I was hooked ever since.
Okay, so you're kind of a child of TV, right? I guess we all are. And then how about your first printed comics? When did you first go into a comic store, or what was the first thing you bought? What was memorable?
Sure. So the first, like I said, I was sick in the hospital. My dad got me a stack of comics. So I remember, Spider Man 2099. I remember the Spider Man, the Todd McFarlane cover, and that kind of opened the gateway. And then I started reading Wizard magazine,
Okay.
and that kind of opened my eyes to indie comics and like Stray Bullets and Preacher, and just that hey, there's more out there than just kid stuff,
Right.
which was pretty cool. And as a kid, you're always like, oh, I want to watch the rated R movie. I want to watch something that I can't, that my parents watch that I can't watch. So for comics to see such a wide array of art and art styles and horror stuff, that completely just opened the floodgates of what comics could be.
Yeah. So this comic that we're holding, this is you're the writer, and
Yes.
I guess you get artists. Did you ever have any training for the creation that you're doing? So I guess writing or art or anything like that.
Yes. So I feel like every writer in comics origin story is that they can't draw, at least for me. So I can't draw for anything. My mom is a fashion designer, so I always tried to put pen to paper. It just didn't look right. But to my credit, I have been told by my artist friends that even though I cannot draw, I do have a style. So I'm like, all right, maybe that's something. I'll take that compliment somewhere. So I decided, I always wanted to write. I always wanted to be part of comics somehow. So I'm a copywriter in my regular day job. Um, so I was able to go to school for writing and learn that way. And then I found a school called Comics Experience, and Comics Experience taught me how to write comics the correct way. through Andy Schmidt and Paul Aller, who are writing comics right now, writing great comics. Andy Schmidt, I believe, is the editor of Boom Comics now, and Paul Aller has done Hollow Heart. He's doing some of the Marvel Rivals comics right now. So it was very cool to learn from them. But yeah, I took the class. I wrote about fast killer sloths, which is one of my other titles called Slowpokes, and it did well in the class. And they were like, you know what, you should try to get this made. So I met with an artist and got one picked, and ran a Kickstarter. Kickstarter did way more than I thought, and I was able to take that money and move it into the next project, which was Zombie Date Night.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask. So take us take us to your first published work. Was that
Sure.
the
So
that
my first published work is called Slowpokes. It's about fast killer sloths because sloths are scary. They have crazy claws and they look
It's true.
weird and they move weird. And I've seen pictures with like the red eyes and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I love sci-fi channel movies and how ridiculous they are. Like there's like Mansquito and Sharknado. So I always joked with friends of mine. I was like, oh, what are they going to do next? Like sloths that become fast. And then that was what I did in my class because I thought that'd be fun. And so I ran the Kickstarter, not thinking anybody would care or want anything, or maybe friends and family would get it. And I was like, all right, I'll ask for like $2,000, make some of that money back that I paid for an artist. And it ended up making close to 10. So I'm like, all right, well,
Nice.
I think I got something here, so I'm going to keep going. And that's my mantra, that any money I make from comics goes to the next project, until people are like, no more, please.
right? Great. Okay. So now let's talk about the inspiration for Zombie Date Night. This is a
Sure.
pretty substantial book that I'm holding in my hand here. Nice printing, nice paper, full color
Thank you.
throughout. Pretty professional art and presentation. So, where did the idea come from?
So back, after the fast killer sloths, I was like, you know what? I want to make sure that for my next project, I can move away from the sloths. Not that I ever will, because I feel like now people give me gifts. People give me sloth bookmarks and socks, and that's what I'm known for, and I
Oh,
love it.
that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Somebody actually got me a sloth claw, which was pretty crazy. Like it was a 3D printed sloth claw that somebody gifted to me at one of these cons, and I was like,
That's
"Hey,
awesome.
that's amazing. That's what I'm in it for." But I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that I was able to be like, "Yes, he does the sloths, but he also does other things." So with the zombie date night, I always thought to myself, before my fiance, that I was like, if I'm on a date and zombies showed up, would I stay or would I go? That was the gauge of whether things are going to move forward or not.
That's
So I
true.
always thought that would be a good idea for a comic, and then Zombie Date Night kind of came from that, and also because dating is scary, zombies are scary, and this was during the pandemic too, so it was a
Oh
lot
my
was a lot was
gosh.
clicking on at once. So that's where Zombie Date Night comes from.
So did you start dating your fiance during COVID?
Yeah, around I met her in
Like at the end
2018.
of 21? Oh,
No,
okay.
2018,
Okay.
and then 2020 was where things were going
Right.
serious, where we were talking about moving in together and things like that. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so actually, it's funny, the pandemic actually saved our relationship because we were separated for a little while, and then and she's actually the editor on all my comics, so it was
Oh,
able
that's cool.
to put us together and figure out what works and what doesn't work. But it's awesome. And now on Sunday, I'm getting married to her, so it all comes full
Oh,
circle.
congratulations.
So
Wow.
zombie date night
Congratulations.
to zombie marriage, I guess.
That's awesome, Steve.
Exciting stuff.
Congratulations.
All
Thank
right.
you. Appreciate
So
that.
yeah, zombies are pretty popular now. It's become a genre. Um, you know, I have a book that Kurt got me about the history of post-apocalyptic movies, and like thousands of movies are in there, and they have all these subcategories now about like
Yes, yes.
movies with viruses, movies with zombies. I recently saw 28 Years, which is the third installment of the 28
Yes,
Days.
that was very good.
Um, Yeah, and that one is like to be continued. So they're like, continuing a franchise. Last night I sat down and I watched Train to Busan. Um,
Oh, that's a good one too.
yeah, Kurt, have you seen this one? Train to Busan.
No, I haven't yet.
Oh, it's like the most downloaded thing on Netflix or whatever right now.
Oh
a
wow.
Korean movie, and it's about the zombie and the virus idea, but it's really well made, just cinema,
Huh.
and the actor is like the leading man in Korea right now. He's like the hottest action movie guy. Um, I have to say it's pretty well made. It grabbed my attention throughout, but it just kind of subscribes to this new category of movies now, and there's like this visual language, where the people are you know biting everybody, and they're making these weird movements. Sometimes their senses are limited, right? And you're starting to see like a lot of the themes over and over. So I guess you can just say like, hey, I like zombie movies, I like zombie comics, I like zombie stuff. And Marvel has gotten into the game too. um,
Yes.
yeah, I mean that's one thing I haven't spent not even 2 seconds on, but I know they had these Marvel zombies for years, and now it's on the Disney Channel. That's some
Of all things, right? On the Disney Channel, which is crazy. Which is crazy.
well, which is the Marvel tab on the Disney
Yes.
Channel, but I guess this is just normalized too now. What do you think of that about they're taking all the Marvel superheroes, turning them to zombies, and then they do stuff? Does that work for you?
Yeah, I think zombies work for any genre. I think that's what makes it more fun. Is that zombies can be a romance, zombies can be a musical, zombies can be superhero comics, zombies can be whatever you want to make of it. I mean, they just did a zombie heist movie on Netflix a little while ago with Zack Snyder. I remember, which wasn't great, but it was an interesting take on it because it was a zombie heist movie. And I think one of the zombies gets pregnant in it, which I don't understand how that works, but
Whoa.
hey,
Wow.
whatever. But like I said, zombies can be in any
Well,
genre.
that happened in
So
the
maybe they'll be maybe they'll be zombie baby.
Oh,
that happened in the
You know,
28
I need
in
a.
the 28 years movie. There was a pregnant zombie that was delivering, and they were wondering if it was going to be a zombie when it came out. I,
but just imagine that world where it's like it's,
Yeah,
it's a gender reveal, but it's not gender reveal. It's whether or not it's a zombie or
a
it's a
zombie
human.
reveal.
Like,
that's wild.
Right. Like
That's
how do you
wild.
not get the virus through the umbilical cord? I'm sorry, but I think in that
yeah, I don't know.
I forget, in that movie there was like kind of like this shock of you find out that this doctor character is some famous actor. I forget who he was. Ralph Fiennes, I think.
Yes, Ralph
Right. And
Fiennes.
then
Yes,
and then this baby, the zombie baby. Um yeah, I mean it's
zombie,
all good.
zombie.
I was
It's good genetics.
Yes,
It's whether you have good genetics or not. Because I'm going to go out on a limb and say the challenge there is writing it realistically enough that you have an evolutionary movement out of kind of us against them, which is us
yeah.
against the zombies, and then now you have this I don't know if you call it a messiah or whatever, but
So,
something that
so
is
he- here,
there.
here's the thing. You guys are real writers and artists. When I hear zombie baby, I think three men and a zombie baby, and I want to write that.
I'm sure it's yeah.
Like he keeps crying for more human flesh. Like we need to get that. Like that's a movie. That's another genre. That's perfect.
Yeah, well, which one was it? I think it was one of the Dawn of the Dead sequels that they were studying them. They had them chained up. They were doing all this blood work, and they were trying to find out if you could like train them. I remember that. There has been some exploration. I mean, I think World War Z was a good one. Was that the
Yeah.
Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's
Yeah.
really nice, high budget, and good action, like pulse pounding
And
action.
zombies can run track now.
Right, right.
Well, that whole going up the wall, like on top of each other, and they would just to get up the wall, and then I thought
Yeah, well,
that was done
Here's the
well.
thing though with
they were
like
definitely
with
using
zombies.
that in. Go ahead, Steve. What was I saying?
Yeah, I was gonna say here's the thing with fast zombies. If there were fast zombies and the world knew that there were fast zombies, they would just be on DraftKings. Like there would be a DraftKings, like can the zombie go do the over or do the
Right.
under?
Yeah.
That's what
Just
would
put a
happen with
pork
that.
chop at the one end of the track, and
Yeah, exactly. Or it would be like jockey racing, but it'd be like zombies, and then it's like, all right, what can I, what will get him to run faster or her to run faster?
let me.
It'd be like
So
prize
then
money.
you get, but then don't you start then getting into like the rights the zombies are supposed to have, and
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then whether they're going to unionize or what kind of
Well,
protection
Kurt,
they're
you're
going to have
joking
about
around, but
the abuse towards the abuse towards
Kurt is having
zombies.
sport, but this brings up an interesting topic of writing, and that's like the duality of things. We learned, through many analysis of like Star Trek and mutants, right? Is that sci-fi writers were always using like aliens as a metaphor for like somebody on Earth that you have political disagreements with, and you see them as like somebody from another planet. We see a lot of otherizing, that was explored very, very deeply by the X-Men over the years, and the mutant thing, right?
Yeah,
Get the
yeah,
muties, right?
yeah,
I saw that
yeah.
last night in the movie Train to Busan. There was people that had escaped the zombies, and in one car, and so they come into like the last remaining car of the train that's safe, and all of the other people are suspicious that they're infected with the virus, right? Even though the virus only takes seconds, like, to take over your body, and then your eyes go blank, and then you become like a flesh eating ghoul. But they were still this suspicion, and like it made everybody that was watching at home say, "No, silly, you can tell if they're infected, right? You're just suspecting them for no reason." And that has a lot of comparisons now, to what's going on, like
Yes.
human differences and political turmoil and everything. So, what's your thinking of like the zombie as a metaphor?
I think it's that it could be anybody. Anybody can turn into a zombie. Anybody. It could be your neighbor. It could be your friend. It doesn't discriminate because it's a virus. Um, you know, it, that's the scariest part. Is that depending on what zombie universe you want to enter, that's the thing. It's like you can't escape it. It's kind of like the Final Destination movies, where it's like you're fighting death and you can't beat death. You can only prolong death.
Right.
So with zombies, you could try your hardest, but the more zombies there are, the harder it is to survive. But then also that fear of because that's what usually happens in The Walking Dead. Is like nobody can work together. There's always like a power struggle and things like that. Is that there's always that fear of just like you're going to take this away from me, you're going to take away my humanity, I'm going to take it away from you first.
Right, but it's
So
also right,
that,
right. So
yeah,
it's permanent, right? And so
yeah, yeah,
like when you're thinking of a zombie as a metaphor, um, it's like they're permanently gone, but they're still around, right? In this human form, and we all these movies are very creative, like in the danger and the action and everything. But as far as like the metaphor for like otherizing people, I think it's somebody here in politics. It's like if they're on the other side and you can't convince them, they're just like a zombie to you, right? And so
yeah,
a
a
lot
hundred
of these.
percent, 100%.
Yeah, and they just like follow the pack, and they do what they're told, and they only care about one thing, right? And they don't think, and they don't have, there's no nuance or subtlety or sensitivity or anything. So we just kind of like write each other off in our mind, right? Like, each side thinks the other side just a bunch of zombies, right?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of like
But
there's a lot of like creative fodder for looking through that lens in all kinds of stories.
But isn't it also just going it's also just always playing back to the source, which is Night of the Living Dead, And I remember my English teacher, senior year, played us that movie on a whim. His name is Gary Boom, and he was the great. He was the greatest English teacher I had ever had, because he didn't care about you reading. He cared about how you thought about things.
Yes.
And so he always loved
He also
throwing
didn't
these
care
things.
He also didn't care to not play a zombie movie in class with your English teacher.
Well, this was the thing. This was what blew my mind. He did this hundreds of times. Like, one of my favorite books of all times is
Ivanhoe.
No. Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say Fly of the Lords, but anyways.
Fly
But
of the Lord. That
so everybody is like freaking out in whatever, like the girls are all, hey, well, why are we watching this? It's scary, like that. And the boys like, yeah, it's cool, man. Oh, that's stupid, so everything. So we all settle down. And he goes, what's this movie about? Everyone's like, man, it's about zombies, right? And he goes, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with zombies. He's like, what do you mean? There's zombies everywhere. No, that's not it. It's about locking diversity in a basement.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? Like, what is diversity? What do you mean? Because all I saw at that point, up to that point, was a bunch of people locked in a basement. Like all my classmates. All my classmates are just a bunch of people, right? But then you start getting into the woman and the color, all of these stereotypes that we place on each other, as Jake just brought this up and everything. But that's a challenging piece of literature, like writing wise, right? Yeah. And then the only other one.
Yeah, the very first one. And that was like,
and then Zombie.
Wasn't that like
Zombie by Fulci?
I think Night of the Living Dead was like 1968, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy early for something like that. And that was a classic. And and it brought up this great this other great theme that you see in a lot of these post-apocalyptic movies, and I think this came up in World War Z, was like, when everybody's on the run, surviving, and resources are scarce, do people help each other or do they turn on each other? And the movies all show both, right? That you'll have some characters that are just like, marauding, street, plunderers, they just, getting anything they can. And then you have, the kindly people that take you in, that hide you. There's a lot of I guess comparison to like the Nazis and Anne Frank, where people are stowing her away and in a nice safe place. But but it brings up all these themes about human interaction and human weakness and that's why, Kurt, you should check out that movie Train to Busan, because it brings up some great themes about that.
It's great. You would love it. It's very entertaining, and it's fun, and it capitalizes on the zombie themes. The thing is, I don't know if you guys can agree with this, but whenever I watch any zombie movies or Walking Dead or anything like that, I always get hungry for ribs. I'm like, man, I could just use some barbecue right now. Yeah, I was like, I know I shouldn't, but like, I could just go for some barbecue ribs right now.
Right.
Yeah, I could too.
Well, as long as it's not human ribs, I'm fine.
As long as it's not human, But every time I'm like, I get it. I understand. I get it. I'm hungry too.
Want to chew it on a bone? Yeah. So, what is your Kurt is probably going to move us on, but my favorite part is like the content and the thinking behind it. So
sure.
You say this is number one, real big on the cover here. So this is going to be a serial for you?
Yeah. So number two came out earlier this year. I sent it to Kurt. Hopefully he sends you a copy as well. We ran a Kickstarter for it. It was successful, luckily. Just trying to move on and move forward. And like I said, any money made towards comics, I've been coming to cons with my comics. We'll just go into the next project. So, I'm trying to get all this wedding stuff figured out. And then once that settles, then I will hopefully be looking towards some more comics for next year.
And so just set up number one. So number one, is this the a first date? You got this guy and this
Yes,
woman.
this is the first date. This is a blind date gone wrong during a zombie invasion. So say you're going on Tinder, you're going on Hinge, you're going on Bumble, you're going on Grinder, whatever you use, and you meet with a person that you're like, okay, I'm not too sure about, but I want to get out of my comfort zone and see what this is about. This could be something good, and it is the most awkward date of all time. And then add zombies on top of that, and you got zombie dating.
Right, and it's just like the person that you were just momentarily with, and you weren't
Yes.
sure even if you liked them. Now you're stuck with them because you're trying to escape a zombie holocaust, right?
Yes, and that could also accelerate a relationship, I think, too, because I think if zombies are chasing you and somebody you just met, you're going to have to rely on them to survive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of that in these sci-fi movies where any male and female that are thrust together by circumstances are going to have some kind of romantic angle. Kurt and I have been talking for a long time about A Boy and His Dog, which is one of the first post-apocalyptic movies ever made, and it inspired the Road Warrior. Um, it was a it was a novel that was turned into a indie comic by Richard Corbin, right? And he called it
Harlan Ellison. Harlan Ellison wrote it.
Harlan Ellison was the author,
Ellison, sorry.
and Richard Corbin serialized it, and he called it something else like Blood and Vic, right? Or Vic and Blood,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
But
Check that out.
yeah, but there's a girl, and that they encounter, and then there's kind of like a dynamic where the boy and his dog are kind of compromised because now there's a girl there, and the human.
Well, the dog's telepathic. Don't forget the dog's telepathic.
As they all are.
Right? Right? You just got to be tuned into him. Got to
I'm
be
I'm,
tuned
I'm
into
excited.
him.
I'm going to see Good Boy tonight. The dog horror movie.
Oh yeah, I saw the preview for that. Yeah, yeah, but there's so many horror movies coming out. It's really I think there's really an increase because like my daughter, for example, my daughter just turned 25, and she has this Stubbs pass or something with AMC.
Oh, nice.
So you pay like this subscription, and you could go unlimited times to the movies. So she goes once a week, maybe twice a week, and invariably it's a horror movie. Because these franchises are on like part 13, part 15. They
Yeah.
just they just
Yeah,
keep
that's another
going.
Conjuring.
Yeah, and sometimes they bring something interesting to the table. Um, but what do you think? Here's a question for you. So, what do you think about the way horror has been invading the comics in the last couple of years?
I mean, I love it because it's. I feel like comics should be anything. I don't think
Yeah.
comics should be. I don't think anybody
Superheroes.
should be gatekeeping comics about what their content is because there's so many
Right.
different ways to skin it. But I do love that there's starting to be like horror is becoming more accepted. So I'm a big fan of like Patrick Horvath, James Tynan. James Tynan is incredible. A lot of the stuff that they do. But it's just nice to see that, and it's nice to see people appreciating like EC Comics or like all those creepy and weird magazines, like all that stuff. Um, but it's just I love it. I was able to get my comics in stores for somebody who is fairly new to comics because I've done horror stuff. So I love the genre. I love all voices in it, and also horror. I feel like the bar is low for what you need to do. Like as long as you entertain, I think people are always with you for horror because like you have high concept horror and then you have low concept horror, which is like and again nothing is low concept, but they have like a killer sofa, right?
Right.
So like you're horror could be anything. So I hope to be right in the middle of that where I'm on the teetering of lowbrow humor, but somewhat highbrow and being
Yeah,
ridiculous.
well, the horror could be anything. True.
Yeah.
The zombies is a little more towards sci-fi. Outbreaks and the
Yeah.
futuristic landscapes and stuff. But
And also love is scary. You know what I mean? When you love somebody or have somebody you love in your life, you're willing to do whatever you need to do to get to to make the other person happy.
right, well, that brings in the theme of kind of like acceptance and
Exactly.
acceptance and affection. And for that, I might even like, that makes me think of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where they used kind of like this like funny take on horror movies and classic B movies to show that trans people are considered monsters in society. And they brought together this huge movement of like outsiders, castaways, like, people that are just like not accepted in their community, and they find each other every Saturday night for the Rocky Horror Picture Show, like in whatever town. I'm sure like every major city has, the Saturday night showings, or did. And through the fellowship and the songs and the dressing up and the makeup and everything, they find their own tribe, right? That's
Yes, like I always say, your vibe attracts your tribe, and comics is a perfect example of that. I mean, if you go to, we went to SPX. If you just looked around, like who'd have thought that all these people would be in the same room together? Like
Yeah.
everybody had to go on their own journey to get there. And what makes me even appreciate comic people more is a lot of comic people that I've met have been introverted, and for them to make something and then come out of their comfort zone, come out of their shell to talk about what they made to people, and even though they're nervous, they're still doing it. That's a triumph. That's amazing, and that's awesome. And I love to see it every single time I do these cons.
right. Isn't it funny? Like you see a comic creator at a table, and you're walking by, and then they're just like, is are they gonna stop, or they're just gonna say, hey, how you doing, and just move on? Oh, sorry, I'm gonna shuffle along. Or you can say, oh, well,
Well, the thing is
yeah,
the thing is that you really feel it at SPX because it's packed in. I
Yeah,
mean, how big you have? Like what, 4 feet? You had about 4 feet, or is it?
I shared, something like that. I shared a
Because you had it
table,
split.
but yeah, it was very interesting, and it was very cool. But it's funny because like I had free stuff, so I was like, here, do you want a free comic? And somebody's like, no, thank you. And I'm like, okay, like, okay. That's
That's
all
all
you
you
can
can
do.
do.
Thank you for being honest with me. I'm sorry,
But
sorry, I
the
ruined
most yeah. Now I think most of the people there, though, it's daunting. It's daunting to walk it because when you pass somebody, and I just am scanning. I'm scanning for my tribe, which
Yeah.
is the sword and sorcery, the barbarians, the apocalypse, in specific, let's say,
Do,
style,
do you
black
call
and
your fan, do
white.
you call your fans the Crominers or something like that, or
I
like
call it the community. I
the
call it the
community is
community
great. That's
is, yeah.
awesome.
No, that's for Crown the Barbarian. Everybody that's part of my Crown the Barbarian community. CrownTheBarbarian.com. Become a part of the community. But they want to tell you their story.
Yes.
Like, the only thing that puts me off is I just don't want to hear, was it 275 people's stories, and a lot, and I'd have to probably even take 250 of them. I'm just not genre aligned. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, So, but I will stop occasionally, and just be like, all right, let me get the spiel.
Yeah.
But then it is the like, okay, I'm walking away now, because the other part of that show is that you're not getting away from a table without spending $10.
Yeah.
So, and
That
because
is
that's indie pricing, that's indie price pointing,
well,
for books, which is
what
the
what
return
what
on the
what you can
investment.
do also is wear two eye patches so that nobody can Jedi mind trick you into buying. You're like I just give me your speech and let me hear it. That's it.
right.
Yeah, but it is, you're right, Steve, because that show is like mega genres, like, and
Yeah.
mixing of genres, because like the few people I just like, well, let me just hear what their thing is. The elevator pitch is like, uh, Conan the Barbarian meets Adventure Time, or
Yeah.
those types of like elevator spins, like, this and that, but I'm working on
Right.
this,
Think
which is
right.
which is cool.
Think Hercules meets Aquaman.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they get it's. I think the other half of it though is the biographical work. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of biographical work. So that can
Yeah, but
be
I was just
hit or miss.
I'm really noticing in the last couple of years that horror as is finding its place. A lot of image comics, anthologies. I got this one called Silver Coin. You know, every issue it's like a different Twilight Zone.
But they say that's a social thing. Um, I can't remember where I heard it, but it was like a like zombie horror. Like basically those genres come when we're in deep recessions, like economically and even politically, like on the verge of war or in war. And so there's this need to like act out in a sense, like to
So
be,
crazy you said that. I took a horror movie class in college, and they said a similar thing where new horror develops because of those things, because of political
yeah,
social things. So
yeah,
like zombies are a fear, and then you have like the like the torture stuff, like the what was it, like Saw and everything like that. That's because of like
yeah,
the
yeah,
the internet, the advent of the internet, and like all the
yep.
like all being a voyeur and that type of stuff.
Yeah, the
So
gore.
yeah, I'm curious to see what new horror. I think the new horror that I'm going to come up with is the price of eggs. Right? Like, oh my
Oh,
god, $30 for eggs.
you
Well, I think the new
you have such a great sense of humor. So anything you're gonna take anxiety wise that's
Yes,
socially
and turn it
socially
into something
moving.
fun.
You're gonna do the optimistic thing. You're gonna positively push it up somewhere where we have to laugh at it, which I think is the most powerful way of creating some sense of honest distance to something without disconnecting from it
Yes, and also
immediately. So I
if you look
thank you for that.
if you look at fear and you look at what things are scared of, what people are scared of, that is kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like it is a funny thing because it's like this thing, whatever you're scared of, is occupying. You still have it still has the same beats as a joke, right? Like whether you're being scared or being told a joke, you're still going to try to get to that crescendo, right? Of whether
Yeah.
it's to laugh or a scream.
right.
So I feel like the two kind of live within the same world of each other, and some things that are scary to other people are not scary to others. So it's like for me, I'm not a big fan of heights. Like in terms of like I'm on a plane, and so I remember one time I was on a plane with my fiance, and the plane dropped like 1,000 feet, and I was the only one who yelled. Everybody else was looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, "This plane just dropped 1,000 feet. Nobody did anything.
Right.
Nobody even was
You
like,
didn't
ah,
feel
I was
that.
the only
You
one.
didn't feel
I'm the weird one."
Yeah, well, we take our phobias, we magnify them, we torture each other. Like I always take the example of like making hot water run over somebody until they can't stand it, and then cold water
Yeah,
until they can't stand it, and like just keep bringing people through the extremes. You can do that like mentally, through good writing. I think there's endorphin seekers. Your horror. People are like, oh, maybe there'll be a couple of good jump scares. But there's really a formula, right? There's really
yeah,
like you're building tension. Things ratchet up a little bit at a time. There's definitely that cognitive thing where the writer is kind of like messing with the audience. Like, okay, there's a gun right there on the table, and there's a zombie at the door, but the guy doesn't pick up the gun. Why doesn't the guy pick up the gun? Well, it's because they want you to jump out of your seat and scream
that's screen.
Get
Get
the
it? Come on.
gun!
pick up the gun. Right. So there's
Give him the
all that great opportunity. The special effects. It's great for special effects people. Okay, we're gonna make people into zombies. We need a lot of makeup, a lot of blood, and scars, and all that great stuff. Not just makeup effects and like tangible physical stuff, but also the digital stuff. So those are all good jobs for people. It adds value.
So let's move to the promoting of not only Zombie Date Night, but just your work in general. Did you say that you're in comic stores? Is that
Yep, I'm in
you have some
comic stores.
distribution?
all over America. So I do everything independently. So I
Mm-hmm.
reach out to comic. Here's the thing, like, and I'm talking to other comic creators. Creating comics is very daunting. It's very scary, as we talked about phobias. But there, like I said, your vibe attracts your tribe. So if you have an indie comic out there, reach out to your local comic store, reach out to comic stores all over America, reach out to horror stores, reach out to whatever your genre is. There's somebody out there for you. Because at first I was like, I don't know if anybody would want it. I don't know. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try. Well, we'll see what happens. And I was able to be in, I think I was 13 or 15 stores last year. And just from reaching out to comic stores and saying, hey, saying my piece, saying my pitch, and if it works out, they'll do it. I've done signings, I've done cons, I've done panels, I've done Q&As, I've done podcasts. So there's no, you can do it too. I completely believe in everybody to make their things happen.
Did you make those contacts by phone
No, I
with
just
the,
went
with the
on Google.
stores?
I just went
Just
on
email.
Google, and I was like, if there has to be a listing somewhere of comic stores. I started out with what was in my area, and then I moved on to like, okay, I think I found this. There was a site where it had all the addresses of comic stores in America, and I just reached out to each one every day for as long as I could. If they had an email, reach out to them and see what happens. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
worked.
So
Nice.
there you're
Nice.
yeah there you're really going like one to one. It isn't like there's a big chain like Newberry Comics or Barnes and Noble or whatever.
No, it's different now. I feel like comic book stores are becoming more niche than what they used to be. Because like growing up, I remember comic stores were everywhere, and I remember in the '90s there was a big boom of like Marvel, DC, and independent. Everybody was doing well, but then I feel like the bubble kind of popped, and when you oversaturate the market of hey, I love all comics and everything like that, but like when there's an amazing Spider-Man, a spectacular Spider-Man, and a super Spider-Man, and this
Yes.
Spider-Man, it's hard to
Yes.
keep up. And it's like, where do I start? Where do I begin? I feel like it's not as easy to just jump in like it is like a Netflix show, right? A Netflix show, it has all this stuff in. Luckily, I know that there's like Marvel Unlimited and DC, DC Infinite and all that stuff, and that's been very helpful. But I remember I got lost because I was like, where do I begin and what do I, what goes where?
Right.
Does
What do
this
I
tie
what do I
into
buy
here?
first? Um,
Yeah, and then there are all these giant events, and I love that there are these giant like cataclysmic events happening in comics, but I feel like nothing sticks.
right.
Like it's just like here's all these people that died, and then 3 months later they all come back.
Right.
It's
Well, I
like, well,
mean,
there's no consequence.
as a creator yourself, the whole thing is we want your money, and we're going
Yeah,
to tap dance and do a million different things. We're going to kill Superman however many times we need to get your money. Until folks realize that they're just chasing. It's like the other way around from indie comics. Like indie comics, people are doing their passion. They're making comics. They're not as concerned about the money and the fortune and everything. But in the bigs, they're just like, no, we need sales, we need revenue. We got to pay these good artists. So let's follow trends. Okay, we're making Disney versions of Thor. Okay, that's fine. And now we're doing licensing stuff. Now we're doing tie-ins. Now we're doing variant covers. Now we're doing everything's a number one, and it just goes on and on like that for decades until you realize like they're just like hacks, and they have this great IP, but they're not always using it. Maybe like one out of every five Marvel comics is like an actual quality comic, and the rest is all just filling pages. Unfortunately.
So,
yeah,
Steve,
harder for things to have love in it. Like I try to put love in everything I can. That's my and also my advice to up and coming creators. Like put as much if you love it, then somebody else will. And that's all it should be for an audience of one rather than like, oh, I got to make sure this person's happy, this person's happy. It's like, nope, you make the things that you want to see.
Yeah, make it with passion.
so that leads us into our next little segment, which is future of comics. What do you see? What do you hope for?
I just want more people to be exposed to comics. Like, I've heard this before, and I think this works. Is if you have all these Marvel movies where thousands and thousands or millions of people are watching these things, why don't you put a little comic stand out in the movie theater or before you get in the movie of like, hey, here's for all, thank you for buying this ticket to Avengers. Here's this comic, maybe it'll open up, you know, I just feel like it's becoming a different thing. I know print, it's becoming harder, but I mean it's also like there are people who love print as well. Like I thought digital comics was
Mhm.
going to kind of take that over, but no, people who want the
Yeah.
print want the print.
Yeah.
Um, but I just hope more people are involved in it. I hope it's more inclusive. I hope people are taking more chances. I'm tired of seeing all these publishers that are just taking people's money, taking people's art, taking people's ideas, and trying to make these like IP farms. And like
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing all these fly by night companies who are like, oh, we're going to create another universe. It's like, why don't you focus on making something good first, and
Yeah.
then go from there. Like if you want to create a universe from that later, great, fine, but like focus on the task at hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Focus on what you're making now rather than
Right.
this thing that like,
You
because if nobody cares about the first character, nobody's going to care about the 10th character.
right. Can you imagine if Disney like created Disney World before Mickey Mouse was off the ground? Right. It was like who would even care?
I
You need
mean,
a
it'd be a lot of those racist crows, and we don't want that.
right. Um, I did notice last couple times I'm in the movie theater, they do have a merch stand now by the concessions. They're not selling comics. They're not selling the right kind of thing, but they will sell you like a mug or a sweatshirt, or a hoodie or
Yeah,
whatever. So they are like capitalizing and merchandising and everything. But specifically, when it's a comic movie, they could sell you a book. There's no reason why.
yeah. Even if just a trade paperback, something like it, give people the option, or those people are there for you already. Like open the gateway, so then people are people get hooked on it because comics are awesome. Comics are such a cool medium. Like I think kids would love it still, but I mean I know everything is money, everything is instant gratification and things like that. But it's just I worry about the medium of comics, but I feel like there'll always be comics in some form. But I just think that we're at a point now where like what is sustainable, what's not. Like Marvel's run by Disney, that's going to go on forever,
Yeah,
but they can do that without the comics and be fine. uh DC, same thing, because they're all they have IP farms. But what about the smaller things like the images, the Silver Sprocket, like all those type of things? It's like, well, how are they able to get new people in? I remember the first, like I did start doing comics in 2020, and I feel like more people were fraternizing with each other about comics than it is now, just because it's like social media is an echo chamber now. Like it's not what it used to be, and it's like, well, how are you supposed to reach people if you can't talk to people? That's scary. That to me is a very horrifying thing.
yes, the enshittification of America. Unfortunately, the social media companies.
Yeah, Twitter is trash. Like Twitter used to be fun. Twitter used to be like great. I could reach new people. I could sell comics. I could do this. But now it sucks. Facebook is awful.
Yeah,
Um,
right. And these are
yeah,
and,
it
and
just
these are specific.
I don't know where to go.
These are specific billionaires, right? That they have a direction that they're going, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of the user anymore. It's they have the users, and we're like a captive audience, and they know in order to talk to each other, we need these platforms. But they're just more and more obnoxious in the way that they're charging or data mining or doing whatever they have to do to get richer and richer. That's crazy. Like, don't you have enough already? These guys.
Yeah, instead of giving the money to these people, give money to comics. You know what I mean? Go to your local comic store, buy some comics. Go find some people online, buy some comics.
Right.
It's
Go
just
to a show.
go to a show. Yeah, that's been the best thing.
Yeah.
So like the
Yeah.
Kickstarter,
Yeah.
since 2020, the Kickstarter was great then, but I feel like it's kind of fallen off as each year goes on, because like I feel like every project on Kickstarter should be a project they love, because what does it hurt?
Yeah. Good point. Good
What
point.
does it hurt? These people are making money for you. You're not doing anything. So
Yep.
if that's the case, then why aren't you promoting everything? You should be promoting everything the same way as you promote, you know, the Thundercats anthology times 20, whatever the hell they put out there. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's another gatekeeper. That's another platform that's a gatekeeper. And last couple of weeks we have been promoting independent consortia of comics. Because like you were mentioning before that you're kind of cold calling retail shops and trying to make different business relationships. But the killer is the shipping, right? Let's say the best thing happens to say, all right, fine, well, send me 10 copies. you know you're getting killed on the shipping. So one thing that indie creators can do to mitigate that is pool their resources in a central warehouse or something. So we've definitely been trying to promote not only the Power Pulp consortium idea, but also encouraging other people to do it. If you have like 3 guys, 5 guys, just put them all together on a website where you could just save the customers the shipping, whether it's an end user or a retailer, because the shipping costs more than the comics at this point.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's why for me the cons are great because I can go, I can go to Nashville, I can go to St. Louis, I can go to Bethesda, Maryland, and give you my comics for $5 each. That's all I want you to buy it for.
Right.
$5 each, no shipping, no whatever. I will sign it for you. We'll talk comics. I'll whatever I can give you, and then each dollar that goes to me goes to the next project. So I think I might prefer that better. I mean, I might have to do Kickstarter every now and then just to see if that works. Go from there, but and reach a little bit more people. But I think going door to door is I would rather just do that.
Yeah. You get an audience, you build on it, and then friends of friends, friends tell friends, word of mouth, etc.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you stay in the game, long enough, you'll make enough contacts and networks, that things should get better and better. If you have more and more product as you get older, you say, okay, I got instead of 5 things at my table, now I have 10 things at my table, right? And you can, offer a greater variety. So, that's the great thing because the work's all done. All you gotta do is just print more, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly, and just continue from there. But yeah, my thing is this is the only thing, and I don't know how you guys do it in terms of your comics, but for me, like I have no goals in mind. It's just seeing where things go because I read a book once and they said like for the year, because I'm a very goal oriented person. I was like, for the year, have no goals and just see what happens. That way, there's no pressure on you. There's no like, oh, I have to do
Right.
this. And so far, so good. And also, great ideas have come from that too because I'm like, I want to just see where it takes me. It's an open ended adventure, and I'm like a comic book, and I want to see where it
Go
goes.
with the flow.
Well, to add to that, I think the one thing I did this year was I did not force myself to complete anything. I gave myself what I always felt was the right amount of time, which I've always known. I'm good for about 3 hours. Like I can sit in my drawing space, making art space for about 3 hours and create excellent consistency. It's just something after that I get antsy. I see a squirrel. I want to go. You know what I mean? I want to go. I want to go and get a pizza. These types of things start taking over. So I don't force, and I also don't put hard deadlines. And I speak openly, to my fan base with Crom specifically. How I'm doing, why I'm doing, where I'm going. Where we'll end up. And I'll tell you, the support I feel now is so much more consistent and like heavy in the feeling than the transient, hey, I got to rush out this product to you because you're anticipating it and you want more of Kurt Bruegel and you want more of, and I'm here to, I think it's a killer in everything that we are really experiencing nowadays. And our dislike of what's going on out there. Because I think one of the hardest things, and I am ultimately including myself in this, is for all the criticism that we put on social media, we still get up 3 times during the day and we check social media and we feel anxious that we didn't post to social media. We didn't make, we said it's, there's got to be a disconnect somewhere in that. But I believe that connection has to be community based. You've got to be building into a community. Because my thing is, I just want 200 fans, people who are really into the same stuff that I'm into, but have that perspective that's slightly adjacent to mine, or you know what I mean, that brings something else that I didn't know about that. Like I'm getting recommendations all the time for other books, and and I just love, I love being in that space with people.
Yeah, like I said, the vibe attracts your tribe, and all those
Yeah.
the community is growing.
Yes, awesome. It is. Yes, it is. So, Steve, this brings us to the closing little segment, which is this is the Indie Creator Exchange, and of course, you were gracious enough to send Jake and I a copy of not only the physical of Zombie Date Night #1, but we did get the digital copy of Date Night #2. So I want to thank you again. But you had time to go through our Turbo Pit Fighter, and we love getting feedback and questions or whatever it is that our fellow comic creator has in store for us. So let us have it.
Well, the question I had: how'd you guys meet each other?
Oh wow! You want to tell your version of the story, Jake, or you want me to tell?
What was your date night?
Let's see if I can remember. It was like the '90s, and we were both putting out indie comics. Was it at a convention, or did we meet each other online? No, there wasn't. I think it was before
there was no online
before the internet. Yeah.
So my version of the story. I'm not trying to negate the fictitious story that Jake has, but the fast thing is when I got out of school in '92, my dad was very excited about the things that I was accomplishing, and he said, "Hey, look, I want to give you some help in promoting yourself." So, matter of fact, he goes, "I want you to read this book," and it was Hugh Hefner's biography. And I was like, well, he's like, no, read it. He's like, this is how you build a magazine empire. And he was right. I mean, I took a lot. Yeah. Good. So I would do my work during the week, and then I would make copies at Kinko's, and then I'd bring 10 or 12 sets of copies, this kind of thing. And then he would go out, either him or I would go to the comic book store and pick up all the trade magazines and comics. So Comics Journal, there's a couple of newsprint, just sort of almost I guess like a zine. And Jake was looking for artists for his scripts. He had actually advertised as a script writer, seeking artists. And he replied to a letter, I believe, but we ended up having a phone conversation. And also because he was in New York, I was anxious to have a connection in New York on some level. So I think of us as always central around comics, like that's our passion. But Jake, through the 90s, this was like 94, I think, is when we actually officially met and got going on comic book projects. But Jake could get into all kinds of creative projects. He was actually the one that forced me to buy a computer because he started getting computer-based work and he wanted to share it. And I would go up at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5 times a year, and then spend time with him, basically doing a show at Jacob Javits, comics, or, something that we had going on. But, and we had a bit of a hiatus from each other just based on trajectories of life. he had children, I didn't, and there's always that fallout. When your buddy starts having kids and all that kind of silly nonsense, you don't want to hang around with somebody like that anymore, right?
You got to raise my kid.
But he literally, I can't thank him enough because was it 2023, 2, February around there. I was having breakfast somewhere and I was, thinking about, some things that I wanted to do, but how I wanted to do them. And he literally called and said, "Hey man, what do you like?" I had talked to him last week. "Hey man, what are you doing? You want to start? You want to start working on a comic book again?"
Yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
And it's just always the way him and I have worked. But I've always considered him more my agent in New York when I look back in the '90s, because Jake was always very gracious. And like he would call me, "Hey, do you have time to do this?" "Yeah, okay, great. I'll send you the files and a check." And FedEx 2 days later, he'd have me working and stuff. So
That's awesome.
that's my version of the story. But it just slipped. We just slipped into being in each other's presence, and we're still in that kind of zone. So
Well, congratulations to you guys for celebrating, your anniversary. But
yeah, we
like zombie date night, it's like comic date night where you guys found each other, you guys made this thing that is awesome and incredible, and you guys are basically parenting it, which is awesome, which is very cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, for
And
somebody who says he doesn't have kids, these are your kids. You know what I mean? Like the every comic is a different part of you.
They are your creation.
yeah, I think the other thing, I've said this before, and I feel very strongly about it. Jake and I really do work very well together because of our history in the '90s and really the majority of our business-like relationship. So even when
Have
we
you
get
guys
into
ever debated?
dispute,
Have you guys ever debated for your comic, like, hey, why don't we go here instead of go here? Or do you guys pretty much, somewhat agree and talk it out?
Well, we kind of have our roles, which makes it easier. Um,
Good.
and whenever there's a creative difference, we kind of settled in on this very very simple way to solve any problem. Is like let's make our own version of it. If there's if
Yeah,
yeah,
there's,
see what happens.
anything that you
yeah,
really need to do that I don't see, and anything I really want to do that you don't see, um, it's an interesting thing. Like on the last teaser, we both have our own version of it because I wanted it printed at a quick print shop and then trimmed, and Kurt wanted to do it at a Kinko's, and then he so you once you have the pages, either one can just exploit it in their own way. So there doesn't really have to be any um, differences at the end of the day. But we also are doing this whole thing from scripting and plotting and dialogue and lettering all the way to inking, uh, color, toning, presentation, marketing, packaging. So Kurt is really the good guy with the promotion and the search engine optimization and doing things, regularly scheduling things, and I'm more of like the concept guy. I come up with the characters and the adventures and the dialogue and names of things, and I get really into rabbit holes and like do a lot of research and stuff like that, and then I
That's awesome.
present it back to him,
Two holes make a whole party.
on our podcast, and when we talk about it. So there's a definite give and take.
Awesome. It's cool. It's cool to talk to other creators and other artists, and because everybody, sometimes you think you're like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but a lot of people have very similar stories and how they do things, and it's very relatable. Where it's like, oh man, I went through that too, or like, hey, you're not alone in this, which is it's very cool, and it's good that you have
yeah,
a partner
I
with you.
mean, it's like a date night relationship. There is a little bit of luck and fate. It's like if you meet your partner. I I also liken it to the band world. Like, if Keith Richards
Yeah.
and Mick Jagger had never met, then or Lennon and McCartney, or Joe Perry and Steve Tyler, like all these great like pairings. They're very fruitful, and it's not like a husband and wife. It's really like a working thing, but
Yeah.
you can definitely get lucky and meet somebody that complements you, so that you can get more done as a team. That's always good. And that's what I was seeking out the way back when I was looking for different collaborators, and I worked with some different people, and Kurt is just somebody that stuck around. Haven't been able to shed him since.
Like, I've been able to get
Yeah,
rid
now
of them.
it's like, I mean, I don't know if Jake wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold, cold sweat with that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm connected to this guy forever with Turbo. You know what I mean? Like the podcast and
Right.
oh my God. But we also have I say this, often is the one for you, one for me. So there's times where he'll say something or he'll request something and I'll just not be into it. But I'll go, you know what? The last time I made a stupid idea, or wanted to make something happen, Jake was like, yeah, okay, okay, okay. So, you got to pick where it is, you want to, wrestle. It's not even fighting, it's never like that, but it's definitely, you got to constantly be mature enough to
Yes.
recognize there's one goal. It's
Yes.
not Jake's goal. It's not my goal. And so there's a level of maturity that has to kick in, which God bless I do have, because, Jake definitely has it because he's raised two kids and two fine kids too, by the way. Two really good kids. So, so he understands that world of compromise, but also getting to that goal. So, he's lucky enough that I've matured over the last 20 something years, maneuver through it. But,
But
That's
yeah, and you
also
also,
well, I was gonna say it's
my-
not rocket science if you have an artist and a writer, right? It's not rocket science there, because each one needs the other, for the
yeah,
yes.
content, right? So
yeah.
that's interesting. But because we're both artists, that's when sometimes there's some overlap. Like, I have something, I can ink it, but you could also send it to Kurt and to ink it, right, to get the inks and tones. So there's that kind of a thing. If you have scripts and you're looking for artists, it's I know that feeling, because you're like, well, the script's already written. All I gotta do is get this thing off the ground, just find somebody. So, like I say, sometimes it's a little patience, sometimes it's networking, but hopefully, you find the right creatives, and you could collaborate.
Yeah, for me, best idea wins, no matter where it comes from.
Right.
Very good
And
point.
it seems like you guys
Yep.
are doing the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and
That
there's
too.
also like a sounding board thing. Like, like I come up with most of the plot, the scripting, the dialogue, the sequences, the action, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. But there was something I read once that said the most creative, like the most fertile creative process is when somebody is relating an idea to somebody that values it, and it might
Absolutely.
not necessarily be a back and forth so much as it is just you're trying to put your best foot forward, and you're hearing how, as you're saying it, you're hearing how it sounds to the other person, right? And you're kind of
Yes.
like like testing it out, like a trial balloon or something. And if that person is receptive. I mean, there's some people that say, no, that's a terrible idea. Where did you come up with that? I'm hanging up right now. If the person is willing to give you constructive criticism and or valuable feedback, then that's like some of the best like kind of like format for coming up with ideas, especially if it's at the beginning stage.
Yeah, and you guys will just grow from there, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we've been growing ever since we started the podcast. We started out doing Turbo Pit Fighter, which was one character, one comic, and then we started saying, well, what about the backstory? How did the world get this way? And we started coming up with these other characters, and then Kurt was like, Jake, man, you have all this stuff just gushing out of you. Why don't you start up a Substack and just put this stuff out there? And he goes, doesn't even matter if it's edited. It's like it could be draft, it could be rough, it could be notes, and so I send that to him on the regular, and he just puts it up on Substack with illustrations, and that's kind of like this little sandbox we have now to pull from. Like right now, when we're doing our anthology, we're going to be doing a couple of zine pages, like he's showing right there, where it's going to be text and illustrations, and we have all this content ready to go now, so that we can fill out this book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the ideas, they come when they come, but when you're meeting, like we meet regularly every week, and sometimes I don't have anything to run by him, but sometimes I do. By the way, Kurt, I wanted to run by you the origin of Little Winter and the death of Hawkwind and everything, right? But we just continue the conversation like all the time, and a lot of the time Kurt is like, wait a minute, who was Elevena again? No, that's the daughter, right? Or that was that the, and I'm happy to explain it over and over because I understand that to another person it can sound like mumbo jumbo until you put it into you put it into context, and then you start to see how it all takes shape. So,
I'll let a secret. I'll let a secret out of the bag by design. My design is this podcast. The our regular 10 a.m. to 11:30 we break away to do the this interview type thing. But by design is we're the making of the comic book as it's happening, because it is. We don't work throughout the week on our own, one getting ahead of the other. It's just coming to this point. Is when issue 1 comes out, we will probably have, well, we'll definitely have over 200 episodes that people can go back to. But the ones that people went to, they will have already heard all of this muttering of characters, like even them going like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, I know that's going on over there because I'm on this side saying, what is he, why, where are you, this kind of thing. But when the comic book hits their hands and they start going in it, there's going to be this whole internalized world as if they'd been reading the comic book for 4 years.
Yeah,
that's going to open up inside them. So,
That's
and
cool,
it's very, very, very much by design, because it's also in respect for each other's time and ability, which I think is another pitfall that artists and writers and comic book makers that are trying to work together to make something happen. There's all of these expectations to get product to shelf. But the problem is that that's what it ends up becoming at the end, is just another thing to pass by that you say, oh, do I really want to get into that? Is that issue 4? Da 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 da. But my design with what we have going on here is you're going to feel, hopefully, one, to be a part of the Turbo community, which I used to call, and I might be bringing back, Turbo Knots. So those are the Turbo Knots, the people that are with us on that. But you know what I mean? It's like we've got to think outside of the box, I think, in promotion and gaining and maintaining attention. And I still think YouTube is the best place when it really gets down to it, because it's sitting in a searchable format. So there's people that are scrolling, and if you are SEOing yourself, or at least dynamically working within the genre per se, other indie comics and making comments and stuff, you're gonna do okay. You're gonna do okay. and that's what you should expect and receive and work with. But all right, well, I think this has been once again another amazing interview, and it is one of the reasons we do these, Steve, is that Jake and I felt were not getting enough of the other people out there making comments point of view. And your interview has been way overdue, and I do apologize because
No
it
worries.
just
Listen,
the
life
moving
happens.
around. But we really I know for myself really anticipating having this kind of conversation with you, which was truly amazing. At this point, we want to turn it over to you. You can
Sure.
tell us, where you're at, how to get a hold of, and where you're going to be, and go from there.
Sure. So I am on Instagram at the Steve Urena, TheSteveUrena. You can find all my comics for free on Global Comics digitally, and then if you want my comics in paperback format or in regular format, I will always share where I'm going to be on my Instagram. So reach out to me on there. I'm trying to get a site up by next year, trying to get some other things next year, but usually you can find me on any social media at the Steve Urena. But yeah, I got a little bit of everything, but I'm trying to make as many comics as I can, and I'm trying to have fun with it. So hopefully you guys join me. I don't have as cool a name as the community, but maybe I'll have some Uraniacs or
Well,
something.
last time,
Something will fall in.
last
Something.
last week I came up with partners in crime. I thought he should use that.
Partners in Crime is
He
good.
should use that for his collaborators, not necessarily the end user, but
Now you had something else. It was like Crom. I can't remember.
Crumtastic.
It was good though.
Yeah,
Something it was like that.
yeah,
But
yeah. That
no.
that 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 public domain stuff is great because you can create, and then you could also find other people that are creating the same thing, and
Oh yeah.
it doesn't have to be
Oh yeah.
competitive at all. It can be
Not
complementary.
at
Yeah,
all. Not at
yeah.
all. Yeah, it's really great. But yes, the all right. Well, I don't have anything else other than thank you, Steve, and also congratulations on your wedding coming up very
Well,
soon. And
here's hoping she says yes, but
Whoa,
it seems like all systems.
yeah,
She just walked into the room.
right. In front of everybody
um,
gathered, right?
uh,
Hopefully,
Yeah,
by that
yeah.
point, you have an idea.
If she's like, you know what, I don't think so.
Um,
uh,
it must be nice to be able to to collaborate with your significant other though on something creative.
Yes.
Right, that's something that I don't think. Like when I showed my wife the latest poster I made, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah, yeah, okay."
I do get a lot of that, but I do appreciate her taking the time to go through the scripts, to give me deadlines, to say, hey, I might not agree with this, but I just want it to make sense,
Right,
and that's the best advice to
that's
have,
great.
just from
Yeah, that's
somebody
really good.
looking on
Yeah.
the outside in. Because listen, I'm not gonna if I was editing somebody's work, I may not do it the way that person's gonna do it, but as long as it reads correctly, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end, everything ties together. I could definitely read that, and a good editor does that. And she does a really great job. She's edited all my comics, and they've all been, everybody has been like, oh, these are tight, these are all the spellings right, all the grammar's right, all the words are good. So can't go wrong with that. So I have to give her a nice raise now.
I noticed you don't have a comic company listed. That's something that we don't see too much, right?
So that I think is coming. I'm trying to get the trademark for it. I'm looking to do Trash for the Masses as my name to go underneath everything. I formed an LLC, and all the comics are under that. So
That'll be your upcoming company.
what yeah, when the trademark goes, I'm doing everything DIY, so just figuring it all out by
Yeah.
figuring it all out week to week and figuring out what works, what doesn't. But I think now, knowing that I have a good amount of comics, I have six now that I'm like, okay, I think I have enough to put stuff underneath
6-pack.
a banner.
Um,
Yeah, 6-pack at the moment.
how,
Six
how many of these did you print up so far?
So let's see,
Roughly. Doesn't have.
800. So I sold out of the first 400,
Wow.
and now I'm getting through the second 400. I'm down, I think, to 200 left. Um, so and then
That's
the
great.
first slow pokes, I'm at 1,000 now, which is crazy. But yeah, they've been doing okay. It's I'm just little by little chipping away,
So if you're getting
going to these comic
400, did
cons.
you compare the price of offset versus quick print?
Uh, I I just go through my my school. They have a printer, and it's very affordable, and the quality is good. So I go through them. They don't take too long to print,
And they assemble the whole
and
thing for you?
yeah,
Right.
they assemble the whole thing for me.
So you have an in.
Same thing with like,
So you have an in. I
huh?
said you have an. It sounds like you have
Yeah,
an
you
in.
just reach out to them. I can just send you their
Right.
email.
Well, yeah, I used to
They
work for a printer, and he printed up 5,000 copies for me for nothing. That was great. And so,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I can't have 5,000. I got to do little at a time. I don't have the room in my apartment for
right, but
5,000.
they
But
say that 300 is the point where it might make sense to compare the cost of offset printing.
gotcha.
But yeah, but it sounds like a healthy print run, and you sold 400 out already. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, with all the Kickstarters and stuff, I've sold a good amount, which is crazy for me because I'm just, I'm just, I sometimes you feel alone in this stuff where you're like, oh man, but it's not true because like comics is a team sport and people are always trying to help you. But yeah, last year I started doing cons for the first time, and I did like 15 cons, and I was able to sell very well at those. And I'm like, okay, I mean, some were better than others, obviously, but I'm like, all right, I'm slowly dipping my feet in to see what the next thing will be or the next level will be. But if it's just going to cons and selling a few hundred every now and then, I'm cool with that. Even if I sell one, that to me
Here's a
is
question:
success.
is there any way for a person to discern the difference between the first print run and the second print run?
Uh, I do not think. I think it's the same. I
So
think
it's
it's
the
the
exact
same.
same file sent to the exact same printer,
Yeah,
exact same
it's the
paper.
exact same
Right,
file.
right, right.
Yeah,
That's always fun because with
then I should probably figure that out.
well, you could,
The
yeah,
collector.
you could say second printing, whatever. But if you're not
Hmm.
changing anything, then it's essentially you're just adding to the first printing. You're just
Yeah,
adding.
yeah. Let's say that for collectors. Yes.
Yeah.
let's say let's say that. Yes. I use my blood like Kiss for everything. For everything.
Every
Nice,
time I
nice,
buy
nice,
Zap
nice.
comics, I'm like, okay, what do I got here? Is it first, second, third printing, fourth printing? And then only some people know the difference, right? So it's
Yeah,
confusing, but it's like, well, I gotta know why. Well, that's the difference between a $14 comic and a $23 comic. Yeah,
that's right. It makes the
right.
difference.
All
But
right,
but
Jake.
I'm so new to this. I'm like, I'll sign whatever. I'll give whatever. I'll give you for $5, just whatever you want
Yeah,
to do.
you got this
I'm.
great,
I guess I'm a comic whore.
all this great room here for signing on the back, right?
That's
Yeah.
true.
All right. Well, Kurt's giving me
All
the
right, Jake.
signal.
Let's let these people get back to
All
reading
right.
comics, making them if they choose. Steve, hold tight. We're gonna keep you for a little bit just to make sure everything gets uploaded. A little bit of an after
Awesome.
show. But
Sounds
Jake,
good.
take us out.
All right, folks. If you got this far, thanks for tuning in to another fine example of indie creator exchange. You can check out our other channels. We have the flip throughs that we do on comics that influence, and of course, our homepage is the Making Turbo Pit Fighter live every Sunday in split screen, 10 a.m. Eastern. Be there, be square. I'll see you next time, Kurt, and thanks a lot to Steve for hanging out this time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Hopefully, I come back again.
Yes.
Oh, you will, Steve. You will. And Jake, I'll see you next
All right.
Sunday.